Hi everyone, it's Kevin here again for the Mind Masters Mindset and Mental Health podcast. Um, Once again, I've managed to get ourselves a new and diverse guest that's going to be bringing us a brand new sort of dialogue, agenda, if you like, on the subjects of mindset and mental health. This is a guy, I probably say this about a lot of my guests, this is a guy I've been watching for a little while, lurking in the background of his socials, noticing some.
Stalking me in a slight
Yeah,
creepy way, but not letting me know.
not actually letting me know, which is a bit dodgy. So I've been watching the work Andy's been doing with the MANS program, which we're going to hear lots about during this conversation. Um, but as I've watched, I've sort of started to understand just little parts of, who he is as a guy and what he's trying to achieve, the impact he's trying to make in the world. And for me, that's a very special thing that we need to get out there as much as possible. Andy is known as a life and leadership coach. He has coached men and women over the years, although is, for me, renowned right now for the work he's doing with the MANS program. Through that, he's doing coaching, hikes, and then the high value MANS program, which again, you're going to hear a lot about. Hopefully in this conversation, we're going to go, as always in my episodes, we're going to go raw, we're going to go uncut, we're going to go where we need to go and explore subjects that may, pick the scab if you like, but it's worth picking. It's important in these conversations that we just, nothing's off the table, and we can be authentic, we can be vulnerable, and we can be real. So, with that said, welcome Andy to the Mind Masters podcast.
Thank you, brother. Kevin, it's
Yes.
just an honor. I really appreciate A, this connection, and B, the fact that we're going to have this conversation. Like I said to you before we went on air, selfishly, I just love meeting new men in Scotland because I've only been here a short amount of time, like just over a year. And I just love making friends. And like my goal for this year, I don't know whether, we're coming up to, it's Black Friday today, right? We're coming up to Christmas and the end of the year, but it'd be interesting to know, the people that are listening to this or watching this, what kind of intentions they set for New Year's. And like at the end of last year, I'd been running a men's group online. It was like, it hit the 3-year mark. I've been coaching men, I've been doing tons of stuff. And this year I was like, 2023 is the year that I really reach out and have, broaden my social network for me, not just, the clients that I have and my partner's friends and my old friends. It's like, I want new friends that are where I want to be, the kind of men that I want to be surrounded by, that have the habits that I'm growing or that I'm good at, but that are aspiring to more, that have like a growth mindset. And my intention this year was for that. So selfishly, thank you for being part of that. It's great to meet you. It's great to be here.
No, it's a powerful opening statement, really, because connection. They say there's a good, strong statement in there about connections king, and so many people that I speak to, a big part of what they've been faced with is this isolation problem, and
Yeah.
don't have they don't have those mindsets, those influences around them. They say the saying that I always use is that your vibe attracts your tribe, and if
Yeah.
you don't have that brotherhood around you, then it can make it very isolating.
Yeah. I mean, that's a classic thing for men anyway, isn't it? Trying to do stuff on their own, being a lone wolf. But loneliness is a big thing, right, for men. I mean, I've been there. And there is no irony in this. Me being in inverted commas an expert in this work, and putting myself out there. And like one of the networks that I've joined is Edinburgh Blue Balls, where we go dipping in the sea every week. Amazing bunch of guys. And yet, like as someone that I regard myself as an expert in communication, conflict resolution, all kinds of different things, and I would show up week in, week out, right? And my inner saboteur would be saying, like, my internal dialogue was this: no one's fucking interested in you. No one wants to get to know you. They all have their own friends. No one's going to talk to you. You're not going to make friends with anybody. The whole fucking time. Like, even though my intention was to go out there and make new friends, there was a part of me that was saying, they're not going to be interested in being friends with you because there's something wrong with you.
Yeah.
And like, we all carry this stuff, right, in our brains, and we can, we can negate that voice, and we can do things that push us out of our comfort zones. But even, I just want to just normalize right here, right now, that, I am in the trenches with everybody else, not just doing the work with people in the field, but doing the work with my fucking brain and my conditioning and my unconscious every day. Even with the greatest intentions, we're going to face challenges, we're going to face tests. And for me, just making new friends and having an intention like that to connect to community, like you say, to stop feeling isolated or lonely. The challenge with that is you're met with the fear of rejection, the fear of abandonment, the fear of not being connected to a tribe.
Yeah. So we'll come back to that. We'll come back to that, because that's one that we don't want to lose. I think because that's an important one that will probably open a few doors for people that are listening, men and women. So tell us, who's Andy? Or we had a conversation before that we started, which says, is it Andy? Or is it, well, who is Andy? Where did the story begin? What's led you in your path to Scotland? Give us a little bit about what you're listening to today.
Yeah, well, my name's Andy Nathan, or Andy Jonathan, or Andrew Jonathan Nathan, to give you like my full name. And every time, like whether it's at Starbucks or wherever I give my name, they're like, what's your name? Is it Nathan or Andy? And like my partner, Rach, she's Australian. Like, she had a mum would always say, never trust a man with 3 first names. And I have 3 first names, but you can trust me. I mean, you have to trust me on that. So I am 53 and a half. I moved to Scotland August 2022. I had been living in Essex for 18 years. I was born and raised in East London, lived in London most of my life, and then moved out to Essex. Background wise, middle child of 3, obviously. Grew up in a family where, on the surface, from the outside, people would say, oh, you're really close, but actually my experience was there was a huge amount of conflict. I never felt safe. There were just arguments all of the time. Stuff would get brushed under the carpet. I never saw how anyone resolved an argument, or didn't see people apologize. I was told to say sorry. I was told to stop doing things. So boundaries were inconsistent. I didn't understand them. Relationships felt scary. Marriage and family felt like something that I didn't understand. So, and what else was call it my early programming. What else? People that were confident were arrogant, and people that had a lot of money were flashy. We never had a lot of money. We always went without, but money was never talked about. So stuff was always hidden. Like all of the stuff that I felt as a child, that we all felt, I'm sure, in different ways, but it was never addressed. It was never talked about. And mental health, that kind of stuff was stigmatized, because I was born in 1970. So where we are now compared to then is like, it's literally unimaginable that I would be doing this kind of work. I don't even think life coaches were a thing then. So that was kind of my formative years. And more recently, I have discovered that there was sexual abuse in my past that literally only came up on a retreat that I went to, that I was part of, where the memories just literally flooded back. So I experienced sexual abuse when I was part of the Scouts, from the person who was the Scout leader. It explains teenage depression. I I had acne when I was a kid that lasted until I was in my 30s, that literally covered the whole of my body, which I felt like fucking the Elephant Man. It was really traumatic. So all of this stuff was kind of going on, and I was trying to understand my place in the world. And the only thing that really helped me was music, like seeing people talking about similar things, like this sense of not feeling alone through listening to other people's lyrics. You know, I used to follow lots of bands that would have like protest songs and things. Like alternative music was big for me. And then at school, couldn't focus, really struggled with concentration. The message was the same, you know, he's an okay kid. He could do better. He could try harder. He could concentrate more. So at school, I always felt like there was something wrong with me. Like it didn't fit into different social groups. I found that because of my energy was, I don't know, it was a little bit black sheepy. I would get bullied a lot. I didn't understand at the time that there was like an unconscious kind of victim energy that I had. I didn't understand what that was about. I didn't understand social cues. I struggled to build any meaningful relationships. I do still have friendships with people that I was at school at, but they're like Facebook friendships. Couldn't nail exams really. I did go into higher education and went into sixth form, but failed that. So I went out into the workplace without any real qualifications, couldn't get to uni. Actually, university really intimidated me, the whole idea of being educated. It was something that, I felt like I was broken. I'd been in this educational establishment and I felt like I'd failed at that. And so in my mind, it's like, well, what the hell am I going to do? Because I had the idea was get a job for life, get set up, have a mortgage, have, this stuff, have kids, blah, 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 blah. And I was just thinking, fuck, I've already failed. What the hell am I going to do? And that was me, literally just dragging fucking depression and this black sack in my brain around with me, constantly anxious, constantly reactive. I was burning bridges in relationships. I was taking everything personally. I was arguing the whole time with anybody and everybody. I would get into fights and black out when I was getting into fights. So I'd really lose my shit. I had no control of my temper, didn't understand rage. I was aggressive. No surprise that when I was introduced to drugs, it was like, thank fuck, there's something that can take away this pain. And, I used drugs probably for nigh on 20 years, pretty much every day. That may account for why I have an appalling memory now. I don't know. Can't remember. Didn't really get on that well with alcohol, but that was kind of me. And I was just trying different jobs. Worked in an office for a while, hated it, didn't fit in. It was a nightmare. Just couldn't deal with the rules and the hierarchy and the way that people interacted with each other. I didn't get adult communication. I definitely didn't feel like an adult. Worked in a record shop for 6 years, which I loved. But I had no personal skills. I could sell, I'd build up all of these different kind of sections in the record shop and sell records. I could sell records to people because I had incredible music taste. At the time that the rave scene started, like the second Summer of Love, I would be buying all these white labels and selling them to I Emerson, who used to be in Underworld, all this kind of stuff. And I was really talented at that kind of thing. And I took up DJing and as a hobby. That went really well. But even with something that I really loved, there was a big part of me that just thought, I'm a fraud. This is not going to work. No one's going to be interested. I'm not as good as. There was always like a battle in me. And the record shop thing ended when I got held up in an armed robbery. And I was an assistant manager and I got tied up with cable ties, held up, and I just watched as each member of my staff came in and the same thing happened to them. So not only was I traumatized by that, I felt emasculated because I didn't feel like I could defend anybody, couldn't defend myself, and I couldn't protect my team. I felt broken by that. And then I could develop PTSD, was having anxiety attacks, panic attacks where I would have a fit like a fish on the fucking floor. I'd feel like I was dying. Then I developed agoraphobia as a result of that and PTSD. Retrained as a secretary. So I have an enviable typing speed. So whenever I'm doing my client calls, like I look like I'm the least interested person in the world when I'm doing my client calls on Zoom, but I'm just kind of typing away like that. So I've got like literally when I send my clients a recording of their sessions and notes, they've got like 7 pages of practically everything they said. And they're like, oh my God. So that proved really useful. And then I went into the corporate world for like 25 years, and did relatively okay, got a mortgage, all of that kind of stuff. Relationships were a nightmare, tons of anxiety in relationships, fear of abandonment, lots of conflict, lots of toxic dynamics. I would always start a relationship by having sex with somebody and then wonder why, literally first date sex, bosh. We'd have great sex and wonder why the relationship would be a fucking car crash, right? No idea what was going on with relationships, didn't understand attachment styles, didn't understand childhood programming or conditioning, but it was great. I was like a wrecking ball until I tried a lot of therapy, and therapy didn't really work for me because I didn't realize that I had a lot of trauma and PTSD undiagnosed. However, one therapist did say to me, let's do this test. And I did this test and it turned out that I had ADHD, and I found that out in my mid-40s. And then after that, I started exploring trauma because I'd found yoga. Yoga started helping me understand that there were communities of people that did accept what I thought was a broken version of me. Eventually, I trained up to be a yoga teacher, which I did for 7 or 8 years. And I understood the mind in different ways. I understood how to regulate the nervous system. And I kept on exploring trauma, getting coached, blah, 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 blah. Got me to where I am now. So I'm a trained trauma-informed coach, life coach. I do all kinds of different modalities like breath work, like conscious connected breath work, somatic healing, family constellations, which is ancestral trauma healing. There's like a 13, 14-year journey of me training, as well as getting therapy, being coached, having my trauma healed and cleared. That's got me to where I am now, in a secure relationship where I've healed my anxiety, and now I'm helping other people with all of the stuff that I struggled with. You might want to edit that down because I think people have fallen asleep. If you haven't fallen asleep, thank you for being here still, guys.
Wow. So.
Oh, and I'm suicidal 3 times as well. Forgot about that. I had to get to
suicidal 3 times in your life. What parts? What stages was that?
Quite recently, like I would say the last 5 years.
Yeah.
Yeah, and that was rooted in feeling like a burden, not feeling like I could provide, and not feeling like I was good enough. Like that. When you get to the end of toxic shame, where you feel like a broken, worthless piece of shit, and you go through the other side into no one's going to miss me. There's just no fucking point. Like right through the other side into like the utter darkness. So I really understand suicide because I know you express that as well, but I really understand it. And I actually got talked out of it by my breathwork coach. Like I was literally going to do it that day. I knew exactly what I was going to do. I had it all planned out.
So there's so many different directions I want to go.
Mate, whatever you want, I'm here.
Unfortunately, we can only go one way at a time. I'm like a child waiting on Christmas Day arriving on Christmas Eve when I do these conversations. I love these conversations.
Me too.
So, what I heard there were, and that last comment about the suicidal thoughts actually just sort of validated where I was. It appears, Andy, that there was reoccurring themes of how you felt about yourself from way early doors right up until now, if you like, because you and I will openly share with the world that they never really go away.
That's the brain's wiring, isn't it? I mean, that wiring's fucking set. Once you pickle a cucumber, it's pickled. But it doesn't mean you can't create new neural pathways and change and new thoughts and new habits, right? That wiring's always there in the brain. So
Yeah.
yeah.
So that you really well described the jumps that you were making in your career path.
Mm.
The moment you said blah 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 was just around about the bit where you talked about you started therapy. Therapy never really worked, but one therapist told you to do.
Yeah.
So what significantly changed at that point in terms of your ability to cope with
Yeah.
your sort of demise in mental health? You talked about you were using drugs,
Mm.
using alcohol, different things.
Yeah.
Where was the change in how you were coping?
The change absolutely was when I tried I mean, so many different kinds of therapies and none of them worked. And, I'm still a little bit, I say this, I say this knowing that there are fucking brilliant therapists out there. I think therapy only works for specific people at specific times of their lives. If there's trauma, therapy is not going to fucking work. And the reason it doesn't work is because the nervous system and the body is where all of the trauma lives. Yeah. And until the body and the nervous system are tended to and worked with, nothing's going to change because it's just dealing with the brain and the nervous system are programmed at the same time, right? And trauma lives in the body, lives in the cells of the body and the musculature. The nervous system is affected by external and internal triggers, right? We go into fight, flight, freeze, people please, as a result of stuff that we don't know because it's linked to cues in our unconscious and so for me, it was being in my body rather than in my head, rather than in a constant state of fight, flight, freeze, or people please, my nervous system was wildly dysregulated, chronically dysregulated. I was on heightened state of alert the whole fucking time. So what changed was from constantly seeing everything as potentially about to attack me. Imagine all of my colleagues were potential threats. Every email I got was a potential attack on me personally. Like that was my whole fucking life. It was like exhausting, but I just assumed that was me. I was fucked. That was how my life was going to be. And then going to a yoga class, doing something which was really hard physically, like stretching my body where it was like I was like wood.
Yep.
Yeah. I was so fucking tense. Every part of me was stiff. And using the breath, breathing through the nose, right? When we breathe through the nose, we activate what's called the parasympathetic nervous system response, which I'm sure you talked about many times, which is the rest, digest, repair aspect of the nervous system, which I didn't fucking know existed. It's all of a sudden I was feeling different, even though it was so painful, so hard. Breathing through the nose, stretching my body, moving my body consciously. So I was understanding that I had a body and that I had experiences in my body. So there was tension, there was pain, there was discomfort. That's my focus rather than all of the emotional, psychological stresses that I was carrying all of the time, and using the breath and being in an environment where people were kind. They were consciously kind because yoga has a whole like 5,000 plus years worth of philosophical teachings and lifestyle which are about ahimsa, non-violence, being kind, community, friendliness. Yoga and Buddhism are very kind of closely connected because they use the ancient language of Sanskrit. And so finding this philosophical system, which turned everything that I understood on its head, like there was a paradigm shift. I could see that there was more than one truth, that maybe what I was thinking wasn't true. Maybe the thoughts that I had weren't true. And having people teach me this while at the same time, I was moving my body, taking all of the stress and trauma out of my cells, it rising to the surface and then relaxing at the end, and being in an environment where I was cared for but not mothered, where I was treated like an adult, like an equal. That over and over and over. That, I would say, without questions, what changed things for me, without question.
So this changes, everything changes.
Oh yeah, I mean, it's just like I was like an evangelist after that. I was like, holy fuck, everyone needs to breathe. Like the yoga breathing practices are known as pranayama, and there's like literally thousands of breathing. Everyone needs to meditate, everyone needs to journal, everyone needs to read philosophy, everyone needs to do yoga, like everyone needs this. It's gonna heal the world. Like I was so boring. Was literally like a broken record. But my life changed, my relationships changed within 3 years of starting that. Everything started to change for me. My depression started to leave. It was literally like night and day. Couldn't be more different.
It's a little beautiful digression there I'm going to make, just what you've just said,
Hey.
because um, I can relate so much to that little point you made. You become the ex-smoker who's now telling everyone you need to stop smoking. You you really need, that's damaging. You become that person. You're almost like, uh, dare I say, the person who chaps the door with a little book of,
Yeah, of
that
course.
chosen religion or whatever, because you truly want. It's not that you mean to impose this new way of thinking, this, but you want to share that. Wow, this beautiful thing has happened, and you just want to share.
Yeah.
And some people really, really take exception to that sharing, and that openness that you now have with the world, and I've experienced that resistance to that by some people. Thankfully, a lot of people have listened, but I can imagine you probably found that when you started to really change direction, you were becoming this new Andy, and you want the world to know, and for them to possibly do the benefit
Yeah.
from that. You must have felt a little bit of that as well.
Yeah. And just to make things worse, I went vegan.
Oh,
So
oh well.
everything, birthday cakes, going out for dinner with friends,
Oh wow.
Christmas, like everyone was just like, literally, this dude is, everything about him is different. It's not the person that I know. So it affected everything. And hey, listen, I hadn't done any coaching. I didn't understand childhood conditioning. I didn't understand conflict resolution, communication. I still had all the ADHD traits. I still had all of the misreading social cues, just with added enthusiasm for yoga. So it was there was still tons of fucking chaos, but I was just a lot less stressed.
Mm-hmm. So I guess because I know for a fact I do have listeners, followers that they're going through some stuff around the subject ADHD, undiagnosed
Yeah,
ADHD and stuff like that. So let's spend a little minute on that.
yeah,
So
for sure.
where did you go next with that? How did we start to address that issue?
That's a great question. I think what I did was I just started to talk to everyone, started with my boss at work and my family, and just saying, this is the truth of, uh, I'm going to say it how it was, right? And then I'll
Yeah.
come back and give you a different perspective now, a few years, well, like 10 years on. This is who I am. So what I did was I identified with the label. This was who I am. Instead of I'm a vegan, it's like I have ADHD. This is who I am. This is me. All this list of things, these bullet points, and the thing.
And fucking deal with it.
Yeah, yeah, and it was like, no, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. No, you're not. Everyone was kind of denying it, and I'm like, just look at these behaviors. This is how I am. Am I right? And they're like, oh shit. So no one else really understood what was going on with ADHD. But so I clung to that, like Leonardo DiCaprio, with Kate Winslet's hand at the end of Titanic. Don't want to give you a spoiler, folks, but that was kind of the end. And I was kind of clinging on to this this diagnosis, and therapy still wasn't working, but I'd started exploring triggers with a therapist, and then I'd started looking at trauma. So I started doing trauma sensitive trainings to, for people that had PTSD through, first of all, through yoga and like more kind of well-being somatic practices, somatic being the body, soma being the Greek word for body. And I started going to courses and then training and working with, therapists who could help me heal my trauma. I didn't go to a psychotherapist to deal with my ADHD. I didn't go to anyone to deal with my ADHD. For me, it was, if I'm really honest, there were two things that happened. There was the identification, and there was the relief. The relief that there was not something broken in me. There was not something fundamentally wrong with me. Yeah. Like the reason that I misread social cues, the reason that I was like a fucking wrecking ball in relationships, the reason that I was more emotionally sensitive than other people, the reason all of these things started to, it was like I got given permission to forgive myself for being who I was the whole of my life. Like every time something happened that I was involved in, other people would be like, it's you, blah, 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 blah. And my interpretation of that was that I was broken. There was something wrong with me fundamentally. And I just thought I was going to go through life depressed, that I would never have a long-term relationship. I would always fail at communication. I would be shit in my career. And I was just fucked. I just thought that was me. And it was fucking miserable. Obviously, it's like literally the worst kind of thing. And over time, with, from an ADHD perspective, over time, particularly then doing things like breath work, and really getting into coaching, particularly coaching that uses the body, somatic experiencing, and then other kinds of things, I started to learn about childhood trauma. And it was then that it started to make sense on an even deeper level. It's like I'm sure you have this when you work with people, right? It's like people think sometimes when they start like inverted commas self-development journey, it's like once and, done once and I'm done for life. It's like, dude, we're in it until we leave this mortal coil, until we shuffle off this mortal coil. There's always more to learn because every experience we have is stored in our unconscious and we can't access that unless we get triggered or unless we work with an expert. And that is every experience we have in the whole of our lifetime, plus the stuff that our parents and grandparents experienced that they programmed into us unconsciously by teaching us values, beliefs, all of that stuff. And so, my ADHD journey then evolved into, there's like my childhood's connected to this. And then I started understanding about addiction. Oh, that explains why I smoked dope every day for 20 years. I was addicted. It was like a low-level addiction, but I couldn't go a day without it. Fuck. Oh, wow. Oh, and that explains why I have problems with my mobile phone. That explains why I have anxiety. Oh, shit. Everything started. And then it took me back to really looking at childhood trauma, childhood conditioning, and understanding that the brain and the nervous system is wired both when we're in a mum's womb and what she's going through environmentally, how much stress she's carrying and what's going on in the world around her. And then when we're born, our environment, society, our family, culture, all of that, how everyone around us is dealing with stuff. When my dad was in and out of work, the stress that they were feeling about not being able to make ends meet was felt by everybody, but it was never talked about. All of that stuff affects your brain, affects your ability to feel safe, to feel protected, to feel loved. When your parents don't listen to you, it's because they aren't regulating their nervous system, because they're triggered, because their kid's out of control and they don't know what to do because they can't cope. So they're just like, shut up, they hit you. I used to get called mental. I used to get hit a lot. This was normal in the 70s. Like this was standard. on all of this stuff creates children that have, neurodiversity. And neurodiversity is like, something happens to me, I feel unsafe, therefore I'm going to adapt and develop this coping mechanism unconsciously. We don't deliberately do it, where I will do something else instead. Maybe I'll stim, maybe I'll just constantly focus on like checking that the door's locked, 18, whatever, it doesn't matter what it is. I will do something, so because everything is so fucking chaotic around me, if I can find some way to control things, my internal environment, so that this is known and I can repeat this, even if it causes me loads of stress and upsets other people, if I can have some kind of control, then there's going to be some kind of safety or familiarity in that. That's like the roots of all of this kind of stuff that we now know as neurodiversity, whether it's autism, whether it's ADHD, whether it's OCD. It's through like it just not having role models, adults who can regulate their own nervous systems, which means they can read their bodies and understand when they're getting stressed and triggered, and they can take a time out. They understand how to set boundaries. They understand how to communicate in a healthy way. They understand how to apologize, how to repair in relationships, how to ask you how you're doing, how to listen with empathy, how to validate your emotions, how to acknowledge how you feel, how to help you through it and teach you and guide you. Until you've done the work, inverted commas, the work on your childhood trauma and your conditioning, you can't be that parent, you can't be that grandparent, you can't be that role model, leader, mentor in life. And so that's why we have so much disconnection now, because over the years, generationally, like my parents were born in the war, Second World War. After that, there was scarcity, there was poverty, there was a whole country that was in rubble that was being rebuilt. All of this stuff over the years, and now you've got parents that just shove their kids in front of iPads that are addicted because the parents don't know how to deal with stressed out kids, because their parents didn't know how to deal with them when they were stressed out. So it's just constant programming, and this is what causes neurodiversity. These are the roots of ADHD. These are the roots of us not feeling able to deal with conflict in relationship, feeling like we want to shut down or just run away, or Netflix and chill, or drink wine, or eat loads of ice cream or cake, or smoke or vape, or take drugs, or have lots of sex, or watch porn. All of that is because in childhood, there wasn't anyone around to soothe us when we needed soothing and say, it's okay, I'm here.
For people listening, so something I'm taking in at the moment, relating to my own life, my own childhood, family dynamics. If you're listening and you're thinking to yourself, well, I have a lot of the thoughts that Andy describes, but I don't recall the trauma that Andy describes. So I feel like I'm not enough. I feel like I don't belong. I feel like, but I don't have, a memory of abuse. I don't have a memory of this. I don't have a memory of that.
Yeah.
The what Andy's articulating really, really well is there is still a need there that's either been unmet or it's been met in a way that your brain has learned somehow to now unconsciously try to protect you. It's trying to protect you in some shape or form. It's telling you things that's limiting you, but in essence, it's just trying to keep you safe. And Andy's doing a fucking great job at sort of opening this can up. I don't want you to listen to this piece and go, well, so where does that leave me? Because I don't have this identified trauma. I don't have.
Yeah.
There's some. I don't know if you can go there a little bit, Andy.
Yeah, I'd love to talk about this. So, trauma isn't what happened to you. It's what happens inside of you as a result of what happened to you. And what happens inside of us is when we experience certain things that are, really upsetting for us, the brain and the body will kind of, they'll compartmentalize what happened. So you may have a memory, you may not have a memory, but the pain, the stress, the worry, whatever will be stored in the cells of your body. So your body remembers. Yeah, there's a
rejection.
yeah, whatever it is, whether it's getting lost in the supermarket,
Yes,
all of that. So, there's most of the people that I work with, not everyone, but most of the people I work with start off with this. They're like, Andy, I had a great childhood. I love my parents. And you talk to any therapist or any coach who has done this work for a long time, particularly on themselves and then with other people, will tell you that, the truth is our unconscious loyalty to our families is one of the biggest blocks to our healing. And my family was not perfect. Like, I don't have a relationship with one of my siblings. Like, we just don't talk. Like, this stuff runs deep.
Yeah.
And even the experts struggle with this. I would say the experts are probably experts because they've lived this, and that's why they're so well placed and poised to do this work. Like me and you, right? We've lived tough lives, and we understand what it is that people go through. But in terms of what we're talking about, how we might have this stuff when we're little, our childhood brains, because we are so reliant, literally dependent upon our caregivers for survival, like roof overhead, money for food, like food on the table, our healthcare needs. We're literally so dependent on them that we will make ourselves the problem, not them. Our childhood brains cannot cope with the idea that our caregivers could be harming us, even unconsciously, even unwittingly, even not deliberately. Like, our childhood brains cannot cope with that. So instead, we make it about us. Our little brains are so malleable. Our brains are so creative when we're young. They're just creating meaning and interpreting things. And children are really selfish. The world revolves around them. If I don't get this, then it must be because, like, children often learn that if their parents are unhappy, it's because they did something wrong, or that it's their job to take responsibility for their parents' emotions, or that it's their job to make things better. It's their job to make mum happy because dad's drunk or dad's late home from work. It's my job to take care of my mum. Children take on these things, and these are all unconscious behaviors. So we may never identify with having childhood trauma. We may have no idea about it, because we may just think, well, we had great summer holidays and we went camping. But if we had emotionally immature parents who weren't able to relate to themselves and you in a way that's healthy, you won't know any different. That's your normal. That's your programming. So why would you think you had trauma? But it's going to show up in the way that you feel like a piece of shit, or the way you're constantly fighting with your husband, or you're constantly blaming, or because they're not tidy and they don't pick up their pants in the morning, you just like, it drives you nuts, and you're just like, but you never do this and you always do that, or you find it difficult to get in relationships, or you feel unlovable. All of that stuff is your childhood brain as an adult, like a part of you that hasn't learned how to mature. But actually, when you have therapy, or when you work with a coach who can help you with that stuff, these inverted commas ego parts can be matured. We can start to understand why actually, the roots of this stuff, and it can be helped and supported and healed in many cases. So to your point, what happens if people don't have, I didn't have anything traumatic happen to me as a kid. I didn't have sexual abuse. I didn't see anybody die. I wasn't held up in a robbery. Cool. But there were plenty of times when you were upset, someone didn't validate you, when they told you to be quiet, and they told you to just get on with it, or just be a good boy, or just finish your dinner. Every time you had a need, like you said, that wasn't listened to, that wasn't acknowledged, that wasn't validated, there was a part of you that then created an internal message. Okay, if this happens, then it's like a formula. If something happens to me, it must be because I don't deserve it, did something wrong. And so it means that It means that other people are right and we're not. So we trust other people's opinions of us more than we trust ours. Versus, and I'm so fucking jealous of the 50% of the population that had secure parents. They grew up with secure attachment styles where their parents were able to say, you matter and you have choice here and your opinion is important to us. Like, I'm so jealous because I never had that and I don't know what that's like to experience that. But if you have self-doubt, if you wonder why you're carrying around this belief that you're not good enough, if you struggle with repeating patterns and behaviors that hold you back or that cause you and other people pain, then it's because of what happened in your childhood. And it's, when I say that, I don't mean that I'm throwing your parents or your caregivers under the bus. It doesn't mean they're not amazing beings, amazing human beings. I have a huge amount of love for my mum. I reconciled my toxic relationship with my dad before he died. But it still doesn't matter that, doesn't mean that they didn't damage you. And I don't mean that in a blamey kind of way. You know, we pass on trauma and we pass on our conditioning until we know better. So they did what they did because they didn't know any better, right? And this is, again, all unconscious. No one sees this, no one knows it, no one understands it unless they do the work. It's just accepted as normal.
Yep. Yeah, in essence, what we do is we, obviously from my sort of coaching background, it's people generalize, distort, and delete the story. So the story that generally people come in and they tell me, I say, right, cool story. Now let's talk about the story that you're running away from. Let's talk about the story that you didn't tell me. And they're like, that is it. Okay, let
Oh,
me.
I love to be coached by you. This sounds awesome.
So what you're doing there, and you know, people don't link the story with, you know, the dynamics at work, what they tolerate from their boss,
Yeah,
what they tolerate from the sibling,
yeah,
what you said, how they feel about going into a social situation, a big night out. They don't make the links with these sort of, they know how they feel about a particular thing, but they don't associate it with they disassociate it with all these other things that are going on in their life. And
yeah.
I think that's what's really important for people. Before we've got so much other stuff about what you do, but I think the bit that you've been talking about, I really, really want people to get this part. This is the part that could be the game changer, that could be, you could become like Andy or Kevin, not to go and become coaches or become doing different things, but to unleash yourself from the things that are holding you back.
Yeah, it's like suddenly finding a key to unlock something you didn't know you needed. And when that door's opened, you're like, holy fuck,
Yeah.
it's not me. And there's a whole world where I can think and feel and act in a completely different way, and everything can transform. All of my relationships, the way I see my boss, the way I see my sister or my dad, the way I see my partner, the way I see sex. Shit, I had no idea. It's like you're given the keys to the candy shop that you didn't know existed.
Keys to the candy shop. There's a thing that I use. It's called Key to the Kingdom, and
Yeah.
it's a triangle, and such a simple process. And I remember a guy came to me, and he said, "It's when I saw the guy, it was actually a person that got in contact with someone else. I'll never forget him because he stayed in contact with me. I didn't charge a guy; he wasn't in a position to pay, and I was absolutely aligned. That something told me I wanted to help the guy, but I'll never forget. He looked me dead in the eyes and he went, "If you make it sound so simple, if only it was that simple." And I went,
Mm.
one day, not today, one day you will return here and you will look me in the eye and you'll say, we're right. It was that simple. We could go into therapy for years and we could play that game and we could go on that roulette, but
Mm.
it is that simple. you know, for you to, like you just used the word breakthrough, you could have a breakthrough that could take you in a transformational direction change.
Yeah.
And suddenly you'll be sprinkling this dust across all the different areas of your life, and you go,
Yeah. Ripples out.
holy shit, how, you know.
It's a miracle.
Mm-hmm.
It is a miracle.
So talking about miracles, um, yeah, let's talk about the man's program.
Yeah.
Let's talk about let's take ourselves forward from, uh, let's blend it into the man's program actually. I'll
Yeah.
name that, because so you stepped into the yoga, you stepped into coaching and different sort of
Mm.
things yourself. How did that then take you into what you're doing now?
Well, I mean, I got introduced to men's work because a guy that was coming to one of my meditation classes set up a men's group. And I'll be honest, I got the ick when he invited me. I was like, I just didn't, first of all, I didn't understand what men sitting in a circle would do. Secondly, um, I was just not attracted to it. It made me get really judgy. I'm going to be really fucking honest here, right? I just thought loads of weak men just fucking with like wobbly lower lips, just whining and being victims and just talking about all of their shit. And I just thought, don't fucking want to be around those kind of men. Just not interested.
What was that about? What was that about, Andy?
What was that about for me, really? Um, I mean, if I'm
Was it
looking,
the unknown? Was it, you know?
it was the unknown. It was not still not really understanding how to deal with my own shit, let alone sitting around watching other men talking about their shit. Like, how the fuck was I gonna? I learned about like separation and seeing that somebody's stuff is somebody's stuff. I can help them with it or I can support them, but I don't have to take it on. So
Yep.
I guess I was worried about being consumed by it, worried about being judged, worried about maybe finding a lot of weirdness that I wouldn't be able to cope with.
Yep.
All of that stuff. There was yeah, it was just so much that I didn't understand why I didn't want it. So I just kind of came up with this story in my head. It's about I didn't want to be around lots of weak men being victims and whining about their shit and not just getting their shit together.
Yep.
Very enlightened of me. Eventually, I went to one. He wasn't a coach. He hadn't done any training. But what I realized, he did a really great job. What I realized was actually guys talking about stuff. There was always a common thread. There was always something that I understood. There was always something that I recognized or related to in some way. Even if someone was talking about child maintenance, divorce, or addiction, or having fights, it's like, fuck, yeah, I can identify with that. And as a result of that, it started to be something that I looked out for. And I'd started my coaching journey. I was part of this incredible community that my coach Eileen had, and I just started going up to the guys in the group and saying, "Hey, listen, I'm going to set up like an online group where we meet every Sunday. I'm going to call it the Wolf Pack, 10 o'clock in the morning. It'll be on Zoom. It's like an open room. If you want to drop in, drop in." And we did that like for 3. I mean, it's still there, and the guys still. I don't participate actively in that, but the guys still use it as a, hey, listen, something's going on. Is anyone free for 15 minutes for a walk and talk, just so I can? And and that was kind of how it started. I realized that I wanted that regularly in my life, and I would benefit from having men that I could trust, that I could talk to. We were all coaches, which helped, but the deal was we wouldn't coach each other, we'd just listen. And that was really what it was born out of. And then, I was seeking in my relationship to understand how to be a better man. So I started studying masculinity texts like what was it called? The Way of the Superior Man by David Data, like King, Warrior, Magician, Lover, which is just like a classic in men's work by Gillette and Moore. Rod Boothroyd's, he's got a version of that which is phenomenal. Lewis House's The Master of Masculinity. I started studying shame, looking at Joseph Campbell because I was addicted to Star Wars, and his work with the, kind of looking at the hero's journey and tribal cultures and stuff. Carl Jung's work, that kind of thing really got me interested in this idea of up-leveling my masculinity. My partner had just started doing an 18-month coaching program with this incredible woman called Monica Yates, who's Australian. She's far too young to be as wise as she is. She's on Instagram, she's Monica Yates Health. She's outrageous. What she understands about trauma and healing masculine and feminine wounds is amazing. It's something that I would recommend everybody gets educated about. And Rach was doing this work, and I realized that like I wasn't fully into my masculinity. I wasn't being a king in my life, that I was still kind of stuck wearing certain masks or behaving in a certain way. And I wanted to understand what it might be like to, inverted commas, be more of a man, to see what that was about. And so I started joining other men's groups, and then I joined a mastermind called the Awakened Man Project, which I'm still part of. And being coached, being mentored by people who are really like further down the line in terms of whether it's high performance psychotherapy or Jungian psychotherapy or masculine psychology, started to actually understand, stoicism, all of these kind of things that I started to explore, understanding that there's so much more to being a man than I was, and understanding that that was because I never had any male role models that could take me on this rite of passage from being a boy to being a man. I didn't have that. No wonder I struggled with men in authority. No wonder I struggled with men who were dominant. No wonder I struggled with men who were overly aggressive. It made so much sense. And I understood that, in truth, after 7 years of teaching yoga, 12 years of being in a yoga community, I was really comfortable around women. And that had kind of overly feminized me. And I realized that the best way to deal with my wounding with the masculine was to face it, to join men's groups. So that's what I started doing and it was not comfortable. Like being around men who would tell me just to suck it up and get the fuck on with it. I was like, well, that's what I got all my life. And that was so disempowering. So fuck you. But I didn't understand actually that there are two kinds of love with men. There's like a soft love, like a grandparent father love, where it's like, I get it. The guiding kind of, and tough love, strong love, which is you can fucking do better, mate. Step up. Come on, step up. And that always felt really shaming for me, because my interpretation was I'm weak. But actually I started to understand that it's like, you've got more in you. You've got so much more you can do. I can see it, but you need to step through this like upper limit that you've got. And that led me ultimately to thinking, okay, this men's group that I've got online is great with my friends, but I feel like the missing medicine that I've experienced through joining men's group and men's programs is like, men don't know how to be men. And in this world where political correctness has gone, it's just ridiculous. And of course, there's lots of stuff that happened during the COVID years where society just changed radically, right? And I feel like men struggle with being men. They often are worried of being seen as controlling or being toxic, or they feel powerless, they feel emasculated in their relationships, and they don't understand why. They get reactive with their kids or their wives, and they don't understand why. They scroll on porn, or they're addicted to their phones and they don't understand why. It's because they don't have men around them to be guides. Like all of the native tribes, forever had these rites of passage, this initiation from boy psychology to man psychology. And because we don't have community anymore, that's gone. We don't have wise elders. We don't have tribal leaders. We don't have shamans. And I realized that what I wanted to do was create that. So like the MAN program originally was set up to be like this 6-month program, but it's grown since to be an organization. And the program is known as the High Value Man program. And that is me doing, I call it like psychoeducation. It's me teaching, whether it's from stoicism, whether it's from, whether it's about shame, it's teaching men about their own psychology, teaching men about their wounding. There's lots of coaching involved in it as well. One-to-one group coaching. We have guests in as well, like David Miller's one of the guest facilitators that's part of the program. We've got like a sex and relationship psychotherapist. We've got an addiction specialist. And the idea is I want to turn men that like are doing this work, are ready to do this work. I want to turn them into, the fathers that they've always needed, like the mentors that they never had, the role models that they never had, the leaders. The idea is it's like training men to be the men that they want to be, that they always needed in their lives, giving them the skills, giving them the education, giving them the coaching, helping them with the healing over 6 months, and giving them the community to grow in, to be vulnerable in, to understand that they're not alone, all of that stuff, so that then we spit out at the end of it mentors, role models, leaders. And that's the goal, to keep on doing that. And there are so many different men's work organizations that are doing lots of different things, whether it's to help you with your business, whether it's to help you in a relationship, whether it's to help you understand yourself or go through a rite of passage. This is about, it's like the University of Man is kind of where I'm thinking this. And then the idea is to do educational programs in schools. The idea is to, work with other organizations like Journeyman to help teenagers. So there's lots of things that I've got in a pipeline that I've got to create in the next year. But right now it's like the 6-month High Value Man program, the Return of the King Adventure, which is a 5-day retreat. There's still 3 spaces left, by the way, in Scotland, 11th to 15th of January. There's monthly nature hikes, and there's monthly talking circles in person in Edinburgh. So that's what the MAN program is, and that's why it exists, to create a space for men to just be seen, to be validated, to realize they're not alone, to realize that all of the stuff that they go through is like any other man that you talk to about it openly. They're like, yeah, I can relate to that. Yep, I've been there. Yep, I've done that. Oh my God, I've had that thought. Shit, that's me. Are you talking about me? Like that takes away the loneliness that we talked about earlier. It takes away that isolation. It's like, finally, I've found an environment where I'm not being told off by my missus, or I'm not being shamed by my boss, or I don't have a sibling or a parent. I don't have any of that shit. I'm met with love. I'm met with other men who are experiencing similar things. They're great fun to be with. We have the most inappropriate laughs. We definitely shouldn't be laughing at stuff we laugh at, but also we're growing together. That and the educational stuff, that's what men need. We used to have it in communities and tribes, but the way that society's evolved is it's consciously or unconsciously, deliberately, accidentally, I don't know, but it's just like it's ripped apart brotherhood, ripped apart men's council, as David might call it. And so it's creating tribes again.
Well, so you're simmering around my next question.
Yeah.
So we did chat with David around a similar sort of question. But I want to go there with you to get your take on this.
Yeah.
For a guy listening to this, why is it so, everything that you're speaking about that you're trying to do with men?
Yeah.
Why is it so important for your everyday Joe that he goes to work, comes home, he's around his family, takes the kids to their clubs and different stuff at night.
Yeah.
He goes back to work, eats, sleeps, shit, repeat. and he's got feelings of, let me think of the 90% of the men that I speak with. So he's got feelings of, he's a little lost. He understands the needs of the people that he provides for, but he really doesn't understand what's missing from his life.
Yeah.
What is it, in your opinion, Andy, that's so important or so valuable in men being around men? Although you sort of touched on the tribal and the history and stuff like that, but
Yeah.
for that guy listening right now, that what do you want him to hear?
Well, the first thing that the guy listening would need to hear is, my guess is you probably think men's groups are a fucking waste of time and you're not interested, and why the fuck would it be a benefit? Right, that's probably the reason that you need it. Like, the cave that you fear to enter is the one that holds the treasure that you need to heal, right? That's paraphrasing Joseph Campbell. But, the reality is you don't know what you don't know. You don't know what you don't know, and yet you think you know, right? But you know that where you are isn't where you want to be, but you can't put your finger on why. You kind of on the surface have it all, but you also know there's a lot of disquiet in you. Your relationship's kind of okay. You maybe you're a great father, maybe you don't have kids yet and you want to. But you also know that your thoughts aren't great. Sometimes your mental health isn't great. Sometimes your habits. Honestly, if you had a CCTV camera like in your brain and following you around everywhere, you would feel like a piece of shit if people actually saw what you thought and what you really got up to behind closed doors. That stuff is normal for every fucking man. When you get in a group of men and you talk about all of the stuff, or you hear, you don't have to talk. You hear other men voicing stuff that you, like, honestly, your darkest thoughts that you wouldn't dare utter to anybody. Like, maybe your resentment about your kids, maybe the fact you don't find your wife attractive anymore, you fantasize about other women, maybe the fact that you hate your fucking boss and you got no idea what you want to do with your life and you feel lost. That stuff, which maybe you can't even put into words, but you hear somebody else expressing that and you're like, holy fuck, are you in my head? Honestly, that the medicine that men need is men. Every time I have connected men together in a men's group, like, I'm really good at making people feel at ease because I can be a bit of a fool. I always bring in my personal story. So first of all, people understand that there's no hierarchy. I'm not better than anyone else. Yeah. When you understand that you're not alone and that every man without exception has thoughts, beliefs, behaviors that they are ashamed of. Every man has challenges. Every man has aspirations that they do fuck all about. Every man keeps on getting stuck. Every man wants to do stuff that they can't figure out how to do or that they're afraid of, and they definitely don't want to tell other people about it. And every man wants to have a lot of fun and have a laugh. And yet they keep that to themselves because they've learned to do that. And when we get around other men, it is, I think, this is my personal opinion, there is nothing more fulfilling, nothing more exciting, nothing more satisfying, nothing more healing than men being together. Like, men who aren't just, I mean, I love football, I'm a Tottenham fan, but men who aren't just doing the surface level shit. Yep. How the kids, how's school, how's work. Like, that is so fucking boring. Has the move gone? I don't fucking care. Yep. Like, I don't fucking care. Like, how are you, mate? Like, that knee injury that you had that stopped you running or playing football, like, how do you feel about that?
And there's a couple of things I'm going to add in and just let you
go for it, man.
So first of all, got a fantastic relationship with my wife. I tell her, we talk about most subjects.
Yeah.
But I'm conscious that some subjects, to be able to unload, box it off a little bit, process it a little bit, sometimes it's good to be able to have another man to be able to do that with.
Yeah.
Because there's roles we're all playing in this life, and men, women, and children, and I know that you've got so much shit on this sort of subject matter, but that whole piece then feeds into the whole climate we're in just now, where a man then takes his own life, and everyone, especially the partner, is going, you didn't tell me anything. Well, yeah, okay, because let's look at that. Fuck, let's just look at that.
Yeah.
Because the conversations with the friends were predominantly alcohol, drug based, were superficial, were surface based. The conversations with the wife, the guy didn't feel, it wasn't a reflection on the wife, but the guy didn't want to burden their wife with that. He wanted
Yeah.
maybe being the provider, being the kid, the whatever the
And
fuck.
to handle it all by himself.
Yeah, so we're in a situation where, I look at, and I know I'm great. I've got nothing but gratitude that the relationship I have with my wife, she totally fucking gets this. I can go
Mm.
out a run on a Saturday morning with a small group of boys, and we can talk the biggest load of shit for a couple of hours, but unloading that shit means that I can be much better present for my wife, my
Yeah.
daughter, my son,
Yeah.
my grandson, and everyone else who needs me for the next few days, because I've been able to do that instead of
Unburdened.
carrying that shit around with me. Um,
Yeah.
because I don't know who I should be speaking to about, and is that appropriate, and is that.
Yeah, and men that all of that, and we're not conditioned to actually talk about our shit. Women are, biologically, women are really social creatures, right? Their support networks are really important to them. They, talking about their stuff is like normal. So for men to hear this message, men need to talk more. It's like that's a very feminized psychological version of what men need to do, and it's like men act why would a man want to talk more when he doesn't know what he's feeling, he's not connected to his emotions, he's just fed up, there's just a lot going on, there's a lot of pressure, he doesn't know how to express it, and so why would he want to talk about it? And yet actually that process of being around other guys where it's normalized, and it just happens, it's just like, oh, a man will ask you questions and you feel like a weight has been lifted. Of course you're going to go home and be more present with your partner or your kids, or you're going to be able to focus on your work more, because that stuff has been circling around in your head whether you've realized it or not, and your mood has been altered because of it. When that's taken away and it's dealt with and it's processed, it's not there anymore. I mean, yeah, it's going to come back, but that's fine. It like comes back, gets dealt with again, comes back, gets dealt with again. It's like that is healthy communication, and that's what brotherhood is, right? And all of the men in the programs that I'm part of, they're just I like to ask a cheeky question. I'm like, do you regret signing up for this? And they're just like, no, my mindset's so different. My relationships are different. The way I talk to people are different. I ask different questions. I learn so much about myself through listening to other men that everything changes. But because we don't realize we need it, we don't step towards it because we don't understand the benefits. And it's really fucking hard selling to men who haven't done the work that it's going to benefit them, because it's like, but why?
There's
Because
reminders. There's reminders all the time about what you just mentioned. Even for me personally, you talked about it earlier, how the work's never fucking done. It's always resurfacing. It always has a habit of saying, "Whoa, where the fuck are you going? Come back a minute." I mean,
yeah,
I recent just in the last couple of weeks, um, had a little knock, little injury, bit feeling a bit unwell, felt myself withdrawing into my shell a little bit, sort of pull down the hatches, let's sort of fix this and everything else. And I was actually one of the guys. We've got a little chat where it's sort of lads who, through the group that I started, an online group, we've all met each other. We all became friends. We all look after one another in a sense. And everyone steps up for everyone at different times.
Love that.
I find myself, if I'm, and the guys would probably say this, I am the taskmaster stroke motivator of the group. You know, I'm conscious I take that mantle on.
Yeah.
So especially when I'm good, the boys know there's no escape. You know, I'm like in there almost Jocko Wilknick sort of like, let's get fucking after it, boys, this week. What did we say we were going to do? You'll hear me on a Sunday night in the chat going, what's our intentions this week? I'm relentless. I get it.
Yeah.
What happened was, I took a knee. I like to call it, I took a knee. So I took a knee. I was taking a sort of count. I wasn't myself. I wasn't feeling myself. I wasn't my best. One of the boys reached out and he says, are you okay? You know, how are you doing? And I went, what do you mean? And so he was coming over for a little hand with his business. And we were going to do a little business coaching. This was last week. And so he came in and he went, listen, you know, I know that you're always there for everyone else, but I picked up that, you know, are we there for you? And I'm like biting my lip, you know, close to fucking having an absolute fucking meltdown, right? And I'm going, yeah, man, I'm good. And then I went, you know what? I'm fucking not good. You know, so we did the coaching session on his business and we did some good work and stuff. And it was after that I put in the chat and I went, by the way, you know what? I'm not where I should be right now. And it's important for me to tell you guys that.
Yeah.
I'm always telling you guys to be upfront, honest,
Mm.
you know, fucking lay it out and then let's put that arms round about and do all that good stuff. And I'm going into my shell and I'm not doing that with yous. And it was a reminder that exactly what we're talking about, I still need to fucking do that. I still need to be fucking honest with my own vulnerability and the fact that I can't keep it at a 10, 7 days a week. I'm going to drop. And when I drop, I need to touch in there with those men that we've built, that, you know, that trust and that safety space, if you like.
Yeah. And what you're talking about is beautiful. For any men that are interested in understanding whether men's groups are for them or not, there's a book by Lewis Howes. He's a podcaster. His surname is Howes, called The Mask of Masculinity. That was like one of the first, I wouldn't say men's workbooks, but it helped me understand masculine psychology a lot more. And we wear so many freaking masks that we don't realize we wear them. So what you were just talking about there, Kevin, it was just like we don't realize that we're doing it. So of course we're going to answer, yeah, fine. Yeah, good. Like that's what we do automatically. And that's why so many men will probably look at men's groups and men's work and be like, I don't need it. But it's because there's that low level hum of disquiet inside where they know that, if they were being really, really honest about whether they're reaching their potential in every arena of their life, whether they're like a 10 out of 10 potential, like I could not do any better. Things could not be any better. Like my bank balance couldn't be any healthier. I couldn't be traveling anymore. Like I couldn't have more sex. I couldn't have more intimacy. I couldn't have better relationships with my siblings. I couldn't have a better relationship with my parent. I couldn't, have a better relationship with my clients and my boss. Like everything is so my body is great. My abs are shining. My triceps are fantastic. I am literally waking up with a hard on every day. Like I have no fucking worries. Every area of my life is absolute top dollar perfection. Like, unless that's you, and by the way, that's never going to be you. So don't fucking lie now and think that it is you, mate, whoever's listening. We are all wearing masks and we don't realize it. Like the invincible mask, the stoic mask, the athletic mask, the know-it-all mask, whatever it is, mask, the nice guy mask.
Yeah.
We don't realize. But when we do realize that, it's like every man is doing it. Or like you just gave I do it as well. I haven't been for a run this morning. I haven't done my workout. I haven't eaten breakfast yet. I need to do that, and I need to edit 2 podcasts. I need to go pick up my mum from the airport. I need to do Black Friday posts. There's loads of we all carry pressure and like, shit, am I going to get this done? Am I good enough? Am I faking it? Am I fraud? Constantly. It's always there. But until you learn that other people have it and you learn to understand that it's there and you learn to listen to it, you're not going to realize how it's running your life in a way and how sometimes your life either feels too controlled or out of control.
And do you think, Andy, like what you've just said there, do you think that not just as men, but we're focusing a lot on that, but people, but let's stick with that. In essence, we spend so much of our time people pleasing and try to do the things that we think the world wants us to do, and be the person that the world would accept better, as opposed to
this is my jam. I love this.
Like living the actual life that is actually aligned to our purpose, Simon Sinek beautifully talks about your why. Is it that we're spending too much on this track and not enough on this one?
I think it's that we don't know where we are. We don't know what fucking track we're on. But like, absolutely. I mean, there's so much in that. Carl Jung, who is like, I'm like a fangirl over Carl Jung, and he created this idea of shadow work, created this idea of the archetypes. And essentially our shadow is all of the parts of us that we edit down. Again, it's the masks thing. The way that we wear different, we're kind of a different version of ourselves depending on who we're around. If we're at work, if we're at a work dinner, if we're at an awards ceremony, if we're out on the piss, if we're in a library, if we're helping an old lady across the road with the shopping, there's different masks that we wear. And the reason that we do this is that we don't believe that ultimately all of our messiness, we don't believe that that is going to be welcome. We believe that if we fully show up, in all of who we can be, the days when we are blamey, the days where we're a victim, the days where we're an arsehole, the days where we're lazy, the days where we are like world beaters, all of that is who we are. And until we fully integrate all of those parts and bring love to all of those parts of us, we won't be able to have healthy expression in the world. So we'll always wear masks. And it's because, throughout our lives, we edited ourselves so that we were told that we're a good boy or a good girl, or we weren't told off, or we weren't bullied, or we found ways to fit in because we have to survive. We're human beings. We're not designed to be alone. Fear of abandonment, fear of rejection are the 2 underlying fears that every human being will have, like underneath everything. Because without our tribe back in the day, we wouldn't survive. If we weren't around a campfire, if we weren't in the teepees, then we'd get picked off. If we didn't have the hunting skills because we weren't the hunter, if we didn't have the berry picking skills because we weren't the gatherer, if we're fucked, we'd starve, or we'd get eaten, or we'd get attacked and killed by another tribe. So it's hardwired in us to belong. Like, human beings need 5 things, right? They need sense of significance. They need to know they're important. They need to know that they belong. They need to receive empathy. I always do the middle finger like that, and it's like I should just do the 3rd finger. They need empathy. They need to receive validation. They need acknowledgement. We need all of this. But when we don't receive that, our brain does funny things to help us survive, like you said earlier, whatever it takes. So we wear a mask. We're a good girl. We eat our dinner. We strive hard. We go to university. We get the best grades. We become the CEO. We, go through the ranks of the military. Whatever it is that is going to get us validation or approval, or that it's not going to get us humiliation or shame or get us beaten up, whatever it takes.
Yeah.
We wear these masks. And so, our journey to enlightenment, as it were, to wholeness, is to find a way to feel safe as who we are. Like, it's safe to be me. It's safe to be disorganized. I am worthy of love, belonging, and connection, even at my worst. But because we didn't have an experience of that being true, I'm like a childhood brain created a meaning that unless I do something else, I won't be loved. And that's an interpretation. It doesn't necessarily mean it was the truth, but it's the interpretation that the childhood brain makes that becomes the adult brain. We feel like we have to be somebody else. Be a nice guy, be a people pleaser, tread on eggshells, not cause an argument, not ask for what we need, not say no, not say, actually, I don't want to come around to you for Christmas, you drink too much. Like, we're not able to be really honest and authentic with people. Therefore, we're kind of masking in our relationships and we're not really happy. And we're doing things that we don't really want to be doing because we don't want to cause a fuss, or because we feel we have to, we're obliged to. Like, that's all fucking bollocks. It's all bollocks. Like, you don't have to do anything you don't want to. But also, conversely, because it's not an either or, it's an and, sometimes you have to do things you don't want to because actually you're just stuck in your comfort zone and you need to do things that challenge you and you need to grow. So there's many truths in that, and I'm so sorry for confusing everyone even more.
No, yeah, some people might be confused, but for me, that was like, holy shit. You know, there was moments there where I'm listening to you in terms of, as you're explaining, the things that we do for validation, sort of just, I guess it touched a nerve. I think about, you know, my own journey, and I think about the things that I've possibly done where my story to the world is that I'm trying to do them for a greater good. And the truth be told, it was probably seeking for validation and some sort of acceptance of the world.
Yeah, you want someone to say, mate, you're doing a brilliant job. I really admire you. Fucking great.
Yeah.
And there's nothing wrong with that, right? External validation is something we all need. Yeah.
It's completely out with your fucking control.
Yeah. And at the same time, you know, the journey is, how can I validate myself?
Yeah.
How can I acknowledge myself? And we're not taught that, which is why I do the work I do, because I need to teach men how to acknowledge and validate themselves, and then how to learn how to do that to everybody in their lives.
Mm-hmm.
Because that ripples out. When someone is taught how to validate somebody else, and because they know how good it feels for them, they will automatically practice it on other people because it feels good. It feels good to feel good. It feels good to feel good thoughts. And it's like we can actually get addicted to doing good things, which is not a bad thing, by the way. And so when you learn how to be different because it feels good when you are, and you receive love and validation and empathy, then you start to figure out how you can give that to other people and they feel good. And then you're like, my God, my relationship with my mum is so much better since I started listening to her instead of giving my opinion. Mm-hmm. Like, my relationship with my boss is so much better since I understood that he's under so much stress. And I was like, what can I do to help? Mm-hmm. It's like, oh my God, it's like, these people are people that, you know, I was butting heads with, and now I'm like, I really like spending time with them. It's like, how is that possible? Just because, you know, we learn how to be different, how to receive different, how to communicate differently.
Oh, right. Okay, stay focused, Kev. Because there's so many different buckets.
We could go on for days, couldn't we? But we've got shit to do today.
Last couple of questions for me. What would the younger version of you be most proud of today?
The younger version of me, I think he would be really proud of the fact that I am validating everything that he felt really alone about, and that I am helping people like him feel loved, feel seen, feel good enough, and feel like there's nothing wrong with them, they're not broken. And his pain and his struggle allowed me to do that, and that everything that he went through wasn't for nothing. All of the pain he experienced wasn't for nothing, and that so much good came of it. And he would turn it around as he grew up, and he would learn to receive love and have love and be love in a way that he never knew was possible. He would feel fulfilled in a way that he never felt possible. And he would be proud that he found a way just by taking the next step, even though he didn't know what the next step was.
Beautiful. That was a good one. Last question for me. what would be, let's see, what would be the top 2 pieces of advice you would give to someone out there that is feeling a little bit lost, a little bit unsure of what they need to do?
First of all, the first piece of advice would be this. Even though you might feel alone and unsure and lost, I want you to know that you're not alone, that this is something that everyone experiences. Every human being experiences this. Most people are really good at wearing masks and not showing it and not talking about it. You are not alone. Like, everyone feels lost at times. Everyone doesn't know what they're doing. Everyone doesn't know where to turn. So first of all, I want to reassure you that, like, you're not broken. There's nothing wrong with you. This is part of being human. But until you start doing the work, until you join a community group, join a men's group, get coaching, get therapy, until you do that, I would actually say coaching rather than therapy personally. If when you start to do a journey where you hire someone to understand yourself and to connect you to something like a community of people who are doing this self-exploration, when you do that and when you take that step towards that, then everything changes, because you stop being isolated in a world of people who are masking, and you step into a world of people who've dropped the mask and are just like figuring out how to get unstuck, what they want from life, how to improve their relationships, how to sleep better, how to have less stress, how to worry less, how to, change careers and do something they really want to do, how to figure out what it is they want to do, how to have more fun. All of that happens when you stop wearing masks, and you have to join a new community, find a new tribe in order for that to happen. So I would say the second piece of advice is take a step to join. I would say join a men's group, or if you have an interest that you are sitting on and you're like, oh, I couldn't do that, join some kind of group that is focused on that, whether it's a running club, whether it's like put an ad in a local newspaper or online to set up a band if you want to be a guitar hero or whatever. Like, you have to take a step, and then even if you don't know what the next step is after that, the path will unfold. People will appear. As soon as you, with intention, take a step forwards, people will suddenly come into your life, or you'll see an advert, or you hear something on a podcast, and you'll be like, the next step appears when you take the first step. It is magic. All you have to do is take the next step.
Do the thing. Do the thing.
Yeah.
The only way you get to do the thing is do the fucking thing.
Yeah. And you don't have to know how. You don't have to have a plan. No one has a fucking plan. Like, might have a strategy for the next year, but like, it really is, okay, the next step is I've got to get a strategy for next year. What does that look like? No fucking idea. I'm just going to put time in my calendar and start figuring it out. That's like literally how you do it. It's always unknown.
We do a lot of work with guys and girls and stuff like that on goals. A lot of people over the years have called me the sort of goals guy, because I'm huge on goals. And I never forget a session we had with someone where they come in and there's like, this goal sheet's fucked, this has happened, and I went like that in front of them, didn't even speak, ripped the sheet up and threw it about the room. What the fuck are you doing? I says, you told me the goals weren't working. What are we going to do now? You've just ripped it up. I went, there's a piece of paper. Reached down, pulled out a new one and went, let's write some new fucking goals. And he went, I went, yeah, how much sleep have you lost worrying about this fucking sheet of paper? I was like, let's write a new fucking set of goals and let's do some new things. This situation that you're dealing with just now, this does not define that you can't do anything. It only means that right now you can't do that thing. And they were, how much time had they lost just not taking a step that would move them out of that situation?
Yeah, I love that. Can I just drop one thing in before we finish?
Yeah, man.
When I learned this, and this was my it was my coach Benjamin Owen. You need to follow me online, Coach Benjamin Owen. fucking brilliant coach. My coach, Ben, taught me this term anti-fragility. And there's a difference between resilience and anti-fragility. And I always thought resilience was what we needed. Like resilience is what we've got to aim for. But resilience is, like my definition of resilience is get knocked down, get back up again, keep going. It's like, I'm going to keep fighting. I'm going to keep fighting. It's fucking exhausting. Eventually you burn out. Yeah. You just, and then you know, like you were talking about, you just go quiet.
Yeah.
The comms go down. And whereas anti-fragility is subtly different. Something happens, you get knocked down, you have a fight with your partner, you lose your job, bad investment financially, whatever it is, you feel low, you get a knee injury, right? You get knocked down. And instead of kind of taking this, I'm a victim or I'm a martyr, or I can do it on my own, hyper independence thing, instead of kind of pushing forward straight away, you stop. And you're like, okay, fuck. And you acknowledge, you're like, okay, this is not where I want to be. I don't like this. It doesn't feel good. I don't want to be here. And then you say, but I had a part to play in getting here. And I might not want to admit this. I don't want to look at this. Did I, like if it's a knee injury, did I train too hard? Did I push too hard? Did I need new shoes? Had I done squats? Had I worked on my glutes that week? Whatever it is, right? How did I have a part to play here? Right? So first of all, you look for second of all, you look for your part. And then you say, there's something that I can learn about this. My ego might not want me to eat humble pie, but I can learn something about myself from this. And then you get up and you say, okay, getting to this point, the shitness, me owning my part in it, me taking a lesson makes me stronger. I'm stronger as a result of this. So I go forward stronger, wiser, more well-informed. Now I go again. Anti-fragility. That is if I can leave that with everyone listening, if you can become anti-fragile, doesn't sound sexy, doesn't even sound soft. If you can become anti-fragile where everything is a lesson, everything you've contributed to in some way, everything can make you grow stronger. Every experience, right, can make you go stronger. In the spiritual traditions, they say God will never give you anything that you can't cope with. Right? He will never do that. Or Allah, Buddha, Krishna, whatever, Christ. You'll never experience anything you can't deal with, because when you can't deal with it, that's it. See ya. See you in heaven or whatever.
Yep. Wowzers. Wow. I've no idea how long we've been talking for, and no doubt the listeners will be on their second walk with the fucking dog by now.
Have mastics in their eyes. I'll be like, okay.
People often say to me, Kev, like, these podcasts are getting longer. I went, these conversations are getting better. Reframe it, please reframe it. Andy, this was awesome. This was really, really good. I have a feeling you and I are going to be talking about a range of things a lot more often. I think, a sense of connection has been born.
Yeah. And that's what happens when we ask questions and listening to each other and talk to each other. That's what connection's about, isn't it?
Mm-hmm. No,
thank you so much. I love it.
I can't thank you enough for being a guest. I know that like always, this is going to be another lot of information for people to digest, divulge, just sort of share.
Yeah.
And you've been a fantastic guest.
Thank you so much.
So for everyone listening, what we will be doing when you get to see this post, you will be seeing it with some information below. We're going to be sharing Andy's pages that he's involved in. I'll share Andy's page. I'll share the man's program page. I'm going to share a bit of information that sort of will direct you if you feel that this is something you want to know more about. And listen, even if you don't want to be involved in a program, I think it's beneficial to be. I like to talk a lot about your environment, and your environment's not just the people you're around, the places you go, but it's what you consume. So if I can fill your plate with good things to consume, good people to sort of read about, listen to, then do you know what? The job has been done today. So I'm going to drop all Andy's stuff in there so that you guys can drop him a follow and connect with him in any way that you choose to, if that would be okay, Andy.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely. And if any of the stuff you want to understand more and you're not in a position to pay for it, apart from Kevin's, but I've got a podcast as well where I do a lot of psychoeducation where you can learn about band, people pleasing or childhood conditioning, or there's free information if you wanna get yourself educated and figure out, that stuff comes with journal prompts and worksheets sometimes. So there's a lot of free resources around. I'm sure between me and you that is going to be helpful for people. So you don't have to worry about investing.
That's a great point. I will make sure I've got, because I was on the podcast this morning, so I'll make sure that I've got the podcast link, the pages, all the different information. It can just take people to loads of different locations and take what they choose to. So thanks, Andy, and thanks everyone for listening. Really looking forward to getting your feedback. If you catch this and you enjoy it, please, as always, give it a share. Let people know what you think so that they can possibly enjoy it too.
Thank you so much, brother.